Hey there everyone, this is Michael Dougal. I review nootropics, and you're going to learn about the side effects that are associated with using Alpha-GPC as a nootropic supplement. I've personally been using Alpha-GPC over 8 years, and I'm happy to say I've only had benefits with the supplement. However, there's a lot of individuals that report feeling awful after taking it. As for this anecdote, one individual mentioned that Alpha-GPC made me feel awful, lazy, and depressed. And at the same time, we have anecdotes saying that Alpha-GPC makes me feel like a god. And I can share with you Alpha-GPC, it's somewhere in the middle of both. Alpha-GPC really isn't that strong. It's a fairly subtle supplement. You have to use it for a couple weeks in most cases for you to notice something, just depending on how sensitive you are to supplements. It's actually a form of choline, choline being a very important nutrient for the brain, often found in egg yolks. One egg yolk contains 150 milligrams of choline, but when you cook the egg yolk, you actually lose 2/3 of its choline content. And while choline isn't something that's often talked about in the world of nutrients, it's important for things like muscle and liver health, and perhaps more importantly, it's associated to things like learning, memory, better thinking skills. And it's been said that over half the population actually has a choline deficiency, and some of the symptoms associated with the choline deficiency would be muscle damage, liver damage, memory loss, restlessness, and anxiety. And we won't go too deep into the benefits of Alpha-GPC. I've talked more about them over here, but in this video I want to specifically outline the side effects. And first, we have to acknowledge the potential risk that's associated with Alpha-GPC consumption, because within the past few years there's been a lot of light shed on Alpha-GPC, and specifically the increased likelihood of having a stroke following Alpha-GPC ingestion. And that's because of this particular study here, the association of Alpha-GPC with subsequent stroke risk. And what they had concluded with the sample size of 12 million people was that Alpha-GPC did in fact increase the likelihood of having a stroke. And although this information is concerning, we should acknowledge a few really important points. First, that the subjects were all over 50 years old. Second, the subjects were all in South Korea, where it's believed that their diet was already rich in choline. And third, these are individuals that were actually prescribed Alpha-GPC. So they were taking Alpha-GPC for some sort of reason, most likely because they had some sort of either neurological disorder or a need for them to take choline. But even then, how could Alpha-GPC be potentially linked with having a higher likelihood of having a stroke? And that's because of the fact that Alpha-GPC can increase levels of trimethylene oxide. When you ingest Alpha-GPC, levels of trimethylamine oxide increase, and as a result, then you have the higher likelihood of the stroke. So if we could potentially find some sort of way to manipulate our TMAO levels, then we could be in safe territory knowing that we can ingest the supplement without the stroke concern. And what's worse is that high TMAO levels are also linked to things like heart disease and neurological disorders. So what can we do to keep our TMAO levels down? We can actually ingest garlic, fermented foods, as well as probiotics. So this is something you may want to consider if you're going to consistently use Alpha-GPC as a supplement. And if you're still concerned about this, but you want to ensure that your choline needs are being met, then you can consider good old-fashioned egg yolks, but you would want to cook your eggs at a lower temperature to avoid the risk of the choline being removed. As well, you can consider the different forms of choline being choline bitartrate as well as CDP choline. Now, I've used both of those forms of choline in the past, and they really didn't do too much for me. Choline bitartrate, I couldn't notice anything with it at all, and CDP choline, I noticed perhaps a little bit, but when I used Alpha-GPC, it was a totally different experience. So I don't know if you'd call that a risk or a side effect, but let's call it side effect number one. The second side effect associated with Alpha-GPC consumption is being in a worse mood. Individuals often use the supplement expecting to feel better, but they're feeling worse. They're feeling demotivated. They're feeling lazy. They're feeling some sort of brain fog. All these feelings are quite common. This individual on Reddit mentioned that they personally experienced pretty bad depression with it. They were taking it 3 to 4 times a week, but in the beginning, it was absolutely amazing. So I have a pretty different experience. I noticed that when I consumed too much Alpha-GPC, the serving size is like 1 gram to 1.5 grams. I didn't feel as good. I wouldn't say that I felt depressed by any means, but what you may want to consider doing is if you're not responding to Alpha-GPC too well, then you may want to consider adjusting the dosage or adjusting the frequency in which you take Alpha-GPC. That seems to fix the issue with most people, and there's no research whatsoever that suggests that Alpha-GPC can make individuals feel in a worse mood or have some of the symptoms of depression. We only have positive things to be said when it comes to mood. Like as per this study over here, they actually found that users of Alpha-GPC aged 22 to 59 years old felt more motivated specifically during the evening, and the evening is typically the time when our willpower is drained. We don't feel that motivated, so it's nice knowing there's a supplement that may help to prevent that. And the third side effect associated with Alpha-GPC consumption are headaches. And these headaches are fairly light headaches. It's not like ingesting modafinil where you experience the headache the whole day and then you can't do anything about it. With these headaches, they can usually actually be mitigated by drinking a lot more water. And then again, consider a different serving size, like 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams. That's usually not high enough for individuals to experience a headache. And then we have some of like the far less frequently mentioned side effects, like some being heartburn. That's one. Another one being withdrawal withdrawals. I can report from my experience in using this supplement that when you take time off Alpha-GPC there afterwards, you do feel a little bit slower cognitively. I actually started off at a serving size of 100 milligrams a day. It wasn't too effective with me. I actually increased my serving size up to 1 gram, and that was way too much. That's when I noticed I wasn't in as good of a mood and I had a bit of brain fog. So I decreased the serving size. Now I'm taking about 200 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day, just depending on how I'm feeling, because this is a supplement where it kind of recharges your batteries to some extent. So the more fatigued you feel, perhaps the more Alpha-GPC you would want to consume. However, every individual just really needs to find their sweet spot with the supplement. It's somewhat concerning that if you find it in pre-workout formulas or nootropic blends out there, they often have very high amounts of Alpha-GPC, like 300 to 500 milligrams, which I would never recommend individuals start with. But there is some good research showing that Alpha-GPC, different than CDP, choline, and choline bitartrate, can actually help you with your physical performance. This study here points to Alpha-GPC's ability to potentially increase growth hormone levels, and this study here suggests that Alpha-GPC can help with power output on isometric exercises, so exercises where you're not moving, like a plank, for example. So what this data tells us is that we may be better off using our Alpha-GPC pre-workout, or perhaps using a little bit more Alpha-GPC pre-workout, and then perhaps having another serving at a different time of the day, perhaps before a cognitive workout. This is a really interesting table in which they actually broke down different age groups and how much choline they should be consuming per day. We can see that males 14 plus years would be consuming 550 milligrams, females 425 milligrams. However, if they were pregnant, they should be taking a little bit more choline as per the table. And this table over here actually looked at the upper limit you could consider taking. So adults being 3,500 milligrams, but that's a really high dose, so I wouldn't even consider going close to that. Now, you also want to be mindful that it's okay to combine different forms of choline. You come across that in different nootropic blends very often. Like Quality of Mind, for example, they have a serving of Alpha-GPC as well as a serving of CDP choline. And when you're looking at Alpha-GPC, you'll commonly come across either the 50% form and the 99% form. And the forms are pretty much the same. Just the reason the 50% form is more popular is because it's more convenient to take. The 99% often gets sticky, gets clumpy. Like if you were to drop 1 drop of water into the container, the whole container would likely be ruined. It's pretty tasteless. I'm someone who consumes the powder, but I also have it in capsule form as well when I need to take it on the go. The capsules you'll typically find in a serving size of 150 milligrams. And I'd love to know your thoughts on Alpha-GPC as a nootropic supplement. Do you give it a thumbs up? Do you give it a thumbs down? If you're yet to try, then I'd love to know about that in the comment section below. Do subscribe if you found the video informative and if you want to see more nootropic based content. And if you want to chat with me one-on-one, you can message me on Patreon, and be sure to visit our Discord server. We have a 24/7 chat room. We're having a whole lot of fun. I thank you for your interest in nootropics, and I look forward to seeing you next time.